The FBI thought they had wiped out corruption. But Evelyn Carter just found something bigger, a hidden network controlling politicians, police, and even the courts. A name whispered in fear, the Phantom Syndicate. No arrests, no witnesses, just missing people and staged suicides. Every agent who got too close vanished. Now Evelyn has a list of names and a single warning: walk away or become the next target. But she doesn't scare easily. They think they're untouchable. They think no one can stop them. Forever before we star. The story. Comment below where in the world you're watching from today, and if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new one. The courtroom buzzed with excitement. Officers in crisp blue uniforms, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights, exchanged smirks and congratulatory handshakes. They had just won. The case against them had fallen apart like a house of cards thanks to a judge who had mysteriously ruled in their favor. Detective Ryan Cole leaned back in his seat, a smug grin on his face. "Told you, boys," he chuckled. "Nobody's going to touch us." His partner, Officer Daniel Briggs, let out a laugh. "That reporter? That so-called evidence? All down the drain." The other officers chuckled, some even clapping each other on the back. Their lawyer, a sleek-looking man in a grey suit, packed up his briefcase. "Gentlemen, as always, a pleasure," he said smoothly before walking out. Then she stood up. A woman in a dark suit with sharp eyes that had been quietly observing everything rose from her seat at the back of the courtroom. "Your Honor," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Before we adjourn, I have one last thing to say." The judge frowned. "And who might you be?" She smiled, just slightly. Then she reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a badge, a golden badge. The room went silent. "Director Evelyn Carter," she announced, letting her words sink in. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." A heavy silence fell over the courtroom. The once celebratory officers stiffened in their seats. The smug grins vanished. Even the judge's gavel hand paused mid-air. Detective Ryan Cole's throat went dry. FBI Director?" he stammered. Evelyn Carter stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. She held up the golden badge just long enough for everyone to see before slipping it back into her pocket. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, landing on each corrupt officer one by one. "You thought this case was over," she said, her voice smooth but laced with steel. "You thought you won." She tilted her head slightly, a hint of amusement in her expression. "But I've been watching, closely." The officers exchanged nervous glances. Even their lawyer, who had been halfway out the door, froze in place. Judge Holloway cleared his throat. "Director Carter, I don't believe—" She cut him off with a raised hand. "Save it, Your Honor. We both know exactly why this case fell apart." A bead of sweat rolled down the judge's temple. Then, with measured calm, Evelyn reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. She dropped it onto the prosecution's table with a loud thud. The sound echoed in the silent room. "New evidence," she announced. "And this time there's no loophole, no bribed witnesses, no shady deals." She looked directly at Cole and Briggs. "This time, you don't walk away." Cole's fingers twitched toward his belt. Briggs swallowed hard. Evelyn smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Checkmate. The courtroom, once filled with arrogant laughter and quiet celebration, now felt like a tomb. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were waiting for what came next. Detective Ryan Cole clenched his jaw. His mind raced. How? How did she get new evidence? We covered our tracks. He glanced at Briggs, who was practically sweating through his uniform. The judge, clearly unnerved, cleared his throat again. "Director Carter, Save it," Evelyn interrupted, her voice sharp. She reached into the folder and pulled out a stack of photographs, tossing them across the table. Some slid onto the floor, and as they did, gasps rippled through the crowd. The images showed exactly what the officers thought had been erased forever. Cash handoffs in dark alleys, secret meetings with known criminals, a body buried in the woods late at night. Crystal clear, undeniable. "This isn't just corruption," Evelyn said, her voice unwavering. "It's conspiracy, murder, racketeering, the kind of charges that don't just take your badge, they put you away for life." Officer Briggs shot up from his seat. This is fake," his voice cracked. "She's making this up." Evelyn didn't even blink. "Oh, really?" She turned to the courtroom door. "Then maybe you'd like to say that to my witness?" The doors swung open. A man walked in, his hands cuffed in front of him, flanked by two serious-faced FBI agents. His face was bruised, his expression unreadable. But everyone in that room knew who he was. Cole's heart stopped. It was Miguel Ortega, the very man they thought they had killed 6 months ago. Briggs stumbled back like he had seen a ghost. No, this isn't possible. He cut himself off, realizing his mistake. Evelyn smiled. "Go ahead, Officer Briggs. Finish that sentence." Briggs' mouth opened, then snapped shut. His hands trembled at his sides. The entire courtroom watched in stunned silence as Miguel Ortega, bloodied but very much alive, slowly lifted his head and locked eyes with the officers who had left him for dead. Cole felt his pulse hammering in his ears. "This isn't possible. We buried him. We made sure." Judge Holloway, now visibly pale, adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Ortega," his voice wavered. You're supposed to be dead?" Miguel's lips curled into a smirk. He turned his gaze to the corrupt cops, taking his time, letting the weight of his presence sink in. "Yeah, I figured you'd think that." Briggs grabbed Cole's arm in desperation. "This is a trick," he whispered harshly. "It has to be." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Oh, it's no trick, Officer Briggs. Ortega survived your little execution attempt. And guess what? He's been working with us ever since." Briggs' breath hitched. "You're lying." Miguel let out a low chuckle. "Nah, man," he said. "I've been wearing a wire for months. Every secret deal, every threat, every dirty move you thought was buried, it's all recorded." He turned his head toward Evelyn. "You got the tapes?" Evelyn reached into her case and pulled out a sleek, black USB drive. She held it up between two fingers. "Right here." The officers' faces drained of color. "This contains everything," Evelyn continued, her voice like ice. "Surveillance footage, conversations, bank records, a full confession from one of your own." She gave them a cold smile. "It's over." Cole's fists clenched. "Number. It can't end like this." Then in one sudden, desperate motion, he lunged for his gun. Gasps filled the courtroom. A few people screamed, but before Cole could even raise his weapon, bang! A single gunshot rang out. Cole froze, his body stiffening. A slow, stunned expression crossed his face as he looked down at his shoulder, where a bullet had just ripped through his uniform. Blood spread across the fabric. Evelyn lowered her smoking pistol. "Bad move, detective." Cole stumbled back, groaning in pain. Briggs put his hands up, his face ghost white. Wait, we can talk about this." The doors burst open again. More FBI agents swarmed in. "Ryan Cole, Daniel Briggs, you're under arrest for corruption, conspiracy, and attempted murder," an agent announced, slamming Cole against the table and snapping cuffs onto his wrists. Briggs didn't resist. He just sat down, his head in his hands. Evelyn exhaled, sliding her gun back into her holster. She turned toward Miguel. "You did good." Miguel gave a small nod. "Took long enough." She smiled slightly, then turned back to the rest of the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "justice is officially served." As the corrupt officers were dragged away, the weight of their downfall settled over the room. and for the first time in a long time, justice had finally won. Evelyn Carter's next big case, the Phantom Syndicate. It had only been a week since the courtroom showdown that brought down Detective Ryan Cole and his crew. The media had gone wild. FBI director exposes corrupt cops in stunning courtroom twist. But Evelyn Carter had already moved on. Because in her line of work, there was always another case. And this one? It was bigger than anything she had faced before. Evelyn sat in her dimly lit office, scrolling through classified case files on her laptop. The faint hum of Washington, D.C. nightlife seeped in through the window. She should have been celebrating her victory, maybe taking a day off. But then the message had arrived, an untraceable email. "You took down Cole, good, but he was just a pawn. If you want to catch the real players, follow the money. I'll be in touch." No name, no signature, just an attachment. Evelyn had run it through every security check possible before opening it. What she found, a list of names, judges, police captains, politicians, billionaires, a secret network of power. And at the bottom of the list, 3 words that sent a chill down her spine. The Phantom Syndicate. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. The Phantom Syndicate. The name wasn't familiar, but the implications were clear. This wasn't just about a few dirty cops. This was something much, much bigger. She picked up her phone and dialed a secure number. "Agent Dawson," a deep voice answered on the other end. "It's Carter," she said, her tone clipped. "I need a full workup on something called the Phantom Syndicate. Start with offshore accounts, political donors, and any unsolved high-profile disappearances." Dawson hesitated. "Phantom Syndicate?" A pause, then, in a lower voice, "Where did you hear that name?" Evelyn frowned. "You know it?" Dawson exhaled sharply. "Not over the phone." Her grip on the phone tightened. "That bad?" "Meet me in 20 minutes, Dawson said, "and bring a gun." Click. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, Evelyn pulled into a parking garage beneath an old warehouse on the outskirts of D.C. Dawson was already there, leaning against his black SUV, arms crossed. He looked more tense than usual. She stepped out of her car, gun holstered under her jacket. "Talk." Dawson handed her a folder, his voice low. "I don't know how you got that name, but listen to me, Carter. This isn't just another crime syndicate. This is something else. Something we've never been able to touch." Evelyn flipped open the folder. Inside were crime scene photos, business executives dead in staged suicides, journalists who had gone missing, whistleblowers vanishing into thin air. Dawson continued. "They control politicians, law enforcement, even the courts. Every time we've come close to exposing them, people disappear." He looked her dead in the eye. "Carter, if you go after them, they'll come for you." Hard. Evelyn stared at the photos, then back at Dawson. A slow smirk formed on her lips. "Let them try." Dawson let out a heavy sigh, rubbing a hand over his face. "I knew you'd say that." Evelyn closed the folder and tucked it under her arm. "You said they control everything, that no one can touch them." She stepped closer, her voice steady. "Well, guess what? I just did the impossible last week, and I'm not stopping now." Dawson shook his head with a half-smile. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" She grinned. "Not when the game's just getting interesting." As she turned to leave, a gust of wind whistled through the empty garage. For a brief second, Evelyn felt something, a presence, a shadow in the corner of her vision. She spun around, gun drawn, but there was nothing, only silence. She narrowed her eyes, scanning the area, then slowly she lowered her weapon. Not yet, but soon. Sliding into her car, she glanced at the folder on the passenger seat. The Phantom Syndicate thought they were untouchable. They were wrong, because now Evelyn Carter was coming for them. The FBI thought they had wiped out corruption. But Evelyn Carter just found something bigger, a hidden network controlling politicians, police, and even the courts. A name whispered in fear: the Phantom Syndicate. No arrests, no witnesses, just missing people and staged suicides. Every agent who got too close vanished. Now, Evelyn has a list of names and a single warning: walk away or become the next target. But she doesn't scare easily. They think they're untouchable. They think no one can stop them.